You can feel it, can't you? That strange silence before everything changes. The air gets heavy, time slows down, and your instincts start whispering things your mind can't explain. You start pacing, questioning, wondering if you should move, run, fight. But something deeper tells you, stay still. Because sometimes movement isn't strength. Sometimes obedience is. The world will try to rush you, panic you, push you into chaos. But there are moments when you're not meant to act. You're meant to wait. Because something's on its way. Something bigger than your plans, stronger than your fear. And when it arrives, it won't need your permission. It'll just unfold exactly how it was meant to. Stillness is not weakness. It's strategy. People don't like stillness. It makes them uncomfortable. They start fidgeting, talking, scrolling, doing anything just to avoid the feeling of not moving. They've been taught that progress means motion, that success means noise, that if they're not constantly doing something, they're falling behind. But what they don't realize is, sometimes movement is just panic wearing a disguise. And panic looks busy, but it never builds anything. Stillness, though, stillness is dangerous. Because when you're still, you start to see. You start to hear. You start to understand what the noise was hiding from you. Everyone wants to look like they're in control. But real control doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to prove itself. It sits quietly, observing, waiting for the right moment to move. The weak ones confuse stillness for fear. They think if you're not reacting, you're powerless. But real power doesn't rush to respond. It waits for alignment. It knows when to act and when to watch the world burn itself out. Because not every fire needs you to fight it. Some flames die out on their own, and if you rush in too early, you just get burned for no reason. Stillness isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing exactly enough. It's the art of patience, the weapon of people who don't need validation to know they're right. It's what separates those who chase from those who attract. Because when you're still, you're not just waiting, you're preparing. You're letting everything else reveal itself. The ones who act out of fear show their hands too early. They expose their weaknesses, trying to prove their strength. But the one who stays still, they make everyone else nervous. Because unpredictability terrifies the impatient. There's a rhythm to everything. Timing, fate, consequence. But people love to interrupt that rhythm with their own noise. They pray for answers, and then when silence arrives, they panic. They don't realize that silence is the answer sometimes. Stillness isn't a pause. It's a signal that something's moving that you can't see yet. You ever notice how calm the ocean looks before a storm? Or how quiet a predator gets before it strikes? That's not weakness. That's strategy. Because power doesn't announce itself. It waits for the right opening, and then it moves with precision. The problem is, people can't tell the difference between stillness and stagnation. They think waiting means wasting time. They've been trained by fear to fill every gap with noise. But sometimes, the most productive thing you can do is nothing. to stand still while the world runs in circles, to stay quiet while everyone else screams for attention. That's how you win wars without fighting. You let the chaos wear itself out. You let everyone else drain their energy while you build yours in silence. Stillness teaches you what noise never will. It shows you yourself. When there's nothing left to distract you, you have to face your own reflection. And that's what people fear most. The quiet exposes truth. It strips away performance, titles, fake smiles. You start hearing your real thoughts, your real doubts, your real hunger. That's why stillness feels violent. It forces you to see what you've been running from. But once you face it, once you accept it, you become untouchable. Because no one can use silence against someone who's learned to live in it. Every storm has an eye, a calm center where nothing moves. Nothing screams. That's the place you need to find within yourself. While everyone else is spinning in panic, you stay in the middle, still, unshaken, because that's where clarity lies. You can't see through chaos. You can only see through calm. People think they need to fight for every answer. But most answers arrive when you finally stop trying to control them. You can't chase revelation. It catches you when you're ready. Stillness doesn't mean you don't feel the pressure. It means you don't let it dictate your next move. You can feel the storm raging around you and still stand your ground. Because you know the difference between urgency and destiny. Urgency comes from fear. Destiny comes from understanding. The impatient act out of desperation. The wise act out of timing. Stillness gives you that timing. It gives you the vision to see when it's time to strike, when it's time to wait, when it's time to let go. The world wants reaction. It feeds on it. The more emotional, the better. That's how it keeps control, by keeping you busy responding to everything. But when you stop reacting, when you stay still, you take that control back. You become unpredictable. You stop dancing to the rhythm they set for you. Stillness is rebellion in a world addicted to noise. It's saying, I don't need to rush. I don't need to chase. I know what's mine won't miss me. And that's what people can't stand. You're calm. They'll try to provoke you, question you, pressure you, anything to get a reaction. Because if you stay still, they lose power. Your stillness exposes their chaos. It mirrors their fear back at them. And suddenly, they realize they can't manipulate someone who isn't desperate to move. That's why stillness is misunderstood. It's not passivity. It's power disguised as peace. It's control without control. It's knowing that while everyone else burns themselves out trying to force their fate, it's colder. You're standing right where you're supposed to be, watching everything fall into place exactly as it should. Stillness is not weakness. It's strategy. Most people don't know how to stay still. They confuse silence with defeat. They twitch. They rush. They panic when things don't move fast enough. They think motion means progress, that chaos means purpose. But there's a certain kind of power in staying unmoved, a danger in waiting too calmly. Stillness unsettles people. They can't predict someone who doesn't react. They can't control someone who doesn't flinch. When you're still, they start projecting their fear onto you. They call you lazy, lost, unmotivated, because your calm makes them uncomfortable. They need noise to feel alive, you don't. People think strength is about doing more, working harder, shouting louder, running faster. But real strength is knowing when not to move, knowing when to watch, knowing when the right move is no move at all. Stillness is a game of patience, and patience terrifies the impulsive, because while they burn themselves out chasing validation, you're standing quietly, collecting information, studying patterns, waiting for timing to work in your favor. The world belongs to those who can wait without losing their edge. Stillness doesn't mean you've given up. It means you're tuned in. You're listening for something most people can't hear. The shift before the breakthrough. The whisper before the storm. There's always a moment before things change, when the air gets thick and your instincts scream to act. But if you can hold your ground in that silence, you'll see what panic hides. Because panic blinds, stillness reveals. The impatient always move too early. They think they're chasing opportunity, but they're really running from discomfort. You're not supposed to move every time the world shakes. Sometimes you stand still and let everything else collapse around you. There's power in restraint. Anyone can react. Only the disciplined can wait. Stillness is control. Control over your emotions, your impulses, your need to be seen. When you stop chasing validation, you become dangerous. Because they can't tempt you, they can't rush you, they can't predict you. Stillness gives you the one thing chaos can't: clarity. While everyone else drowns in their own noise, you're quietly seeing everything for what it really is. You ever notice how predators move before they strike? Slow, calculated, measured. The prey panics, runs, makes mistakes. The predator waits for the exact second the odds shift, then moves once. That's stillness. It's not doing nothing. It's doing enough. You don't waste energy proving a point. You wait until action actually matters. The impatient waste power on reaction. The still conserve it for precision. Stillness isn't about peace. It's about pressure. It's holding steady when everything inside you wants to run. It's looking chaos in the eye and not blinking. People will never understand how hard that is. To stay calm while your world shakes. To breathe when everything in you wants to scream. But if you can master that, you can outlast anything. Because storms don't last forever. But those who panic in them always drown first. When you stay still, you give space for things to align. You give the unseen time to work. There are forces bigger than your plans. Timing stronger than your control. You can't rush what's meant for you. And you can't delay what's not. Stillness is the language of trust. The quiet understanding that just because you're not moving doesn't mean nothing's happening. Sometimes the biggest shifts happen while you wait. The truth is, people fear stillness because it exposes them. In silence, you can hear your own thoughts, your own doubts, your own truth. And truth isn't comfortable. That's why they fill their days with noise, to drown it out. But when you embrace stillness, you stop running from yourself. You start to understand that most of what you've been chasing was never meant for you. That's when real transformation begins. Not when you move, but when you finally stop. Stillness is power in disguise. It's the calm before your rise, the breath before the hit. The world will try to convince you that you're wasting time, that you're falling behind. Don't listen. Let them run. Let them exhaust themselves trying to force what's already written. When the time comes, you'll move once, and everything will shift. Because stillness was never about waiting. It was about knowing. Knowing when to act, when to pause, when to trust that the storm outside doesn't change the strength inside. Divine timing doesn't rush to meet human fear. That's the problem, isn't it? People think they can schedule destiny. They think they can make something happen just because they're ready. Or worse, because they're desperate. They pray for things, beg for signs, and when nothing shows up, they panic. They think silence means denial, but that's not how it works. Timing doesn't care about your anxiety, your tears, or your impatience. It moves when it's supposed to, not when you want it to. And that's what drives people insane, because they want control. They want to be God over their own story. But life doesn't take orders. You ever notice how people crumble when they don't get what they want right away? They start questioning everything. Faith, purpose, even themselves. They don't understand that waiting isn't punishment. It's precision. Because if what you want came too early, it would destroy you. Timing doesn't delay to hurt you. It delays to prepare you. But people can't see that while they're pacing in circles, screaming into the silence, trying to force doors that aren't ready to open. They want things instantly, even if it means losing them just as fast. Fear makes people move too soon. They rush into relationships because they're scared to be alone. They settle for jobs they hate because they're scared of uncertainty. They chase validation because they're scared of being unseen. And every time they do, they trade destiny for distraction. Fear makes them build lives on panic instead of patience. But divine timing doesn't bend to fear. It exposes it. It sits you down in silence and says, "Let's see if you really trust what you say you believe." You can't fake patience. You can fake confidence, fake faith, fake peace, but not patience. Because patience isn't about smiling while you wait. It's about trusting while you have no proof. And that's the hardest part. People want to see progress, movement, results. But sometimes, the universe hides them just to test your endurance. You can't plant a seed and dig it up every hour to check if it's growing. That's what most people do with their dreams. They plant faith one day and dig it up with doubt the next. There's a reason divine timing moves in silence. Because if you knew how close you were, you'd mess it up. You'd talk too much, act too fast, or invite the wrong people into your next chapter. Silence protects your process. It hides you while you build. That's why some seasons feel lonely. Not because you're forgotten, but because you're being refined. You're being stripped of distractions, of fake support, of impatience. Because when it's finally time, you can't afford to be half prepared. People love to say, everything happens for a reason, but they only believe it when the reason benefits them. The moment the waiting hurts, they forget the phrase. They start calling delay rejection, when it's actually redirection. Timing doesn't make mistakes. Every not yet is there to save you from something you can't see. But fear convinces you that silence means failure. Fear tells you to settle. Fear tells you that waiting is weakness. So you start chasing what isn't meant for you, trying to fix what was never broken, trying to prove something that didn't need proof. Fear rushes, faith rests. That's the difference. Fear says, do it now before it's too late. Faith says, if it's meant for me, it can't be too late. Fear wants control. Faith trusts control. The problem is, people listen to fear because it's louder. It screams. It panics. It feels urgent. Faith whispers. It stays calm. And in a world addicted to noise, most people miss the whisper. They follow the scream instead, and then wonder why they end up tired, empty, disappointed. Timing isn't cruel, it's calculated. It knows the version of you that can handle the blessing you've been asking for. That's why it waits. It's not waiting on the world, it's waiting on you. It's waiting for your character to catch up to your calling. You can't ask for a crown while you're still thinking like a slave. You can't demand a kingdom when you haven't learned to rule yourself. Timing delays to build what haste would destroy. The truth is, people aren't patient. They're terrified. Terrified that if they don't make it happen themselves, it won't happen at all. So they chase, manipulate, push, pull, lie, pretend, and the more they force, the more things slip away. Because what's truly meant for you doesn't need to be forced. It just needs to be recognized. And recognition only happens in stillness. You start learning that sometimes the waiting is the miracle. That silence isn't empty. It's where everything's being rearranged. You stop asking, when? And start asking, what? What am I learning? What am I shedding? What am I being prepared for? Because divine timing doesn't delay. It develops. It makes sure when it finally delivers, you're not the same desperate version that once begged for crumbs. There's a reason why the greatest things arrive when you've finally stopped chasing them. Because timing doesn't respond to noise. It responds to readiness. When you stop panicking, stop begging, stop trying to outthink fate, that's when everything starts to shift. Fear loses its grip the moment you realize you were never waiting on time. Time was waiting on you. What's meant for you will arrive without your chase. That's the part no one wants to hear, because everyone wants control. They want to plan every second, every move, every outcome. They want to force doors open and call it ambition. But the truth is, chasing something that's already yours is just another form of fear. You don't chase what's meant for you. You attract it by being ready for it. And when you're ready, it finds you. No struggle, no begging, no convincing. It just fits, like it was always supposed to. But people don't like waiting for things to come to them. They've been taught that stillness is laziness, that rest is weakness, that hustle means worth. So they chase everything. Love, money, validation, attention, thinking speed equals success. They wear exhaustion like a trophy, thinking it proves they're doing something right. But there's a difference between pursuit and panic. One is intentional, the other is desperation wearing ambition's mask. People call it drive. But most of them are just running from the fear of not being enough. You ever notice how the harder you chase something, the faster it runs away? That's not coincidence. It's resistance. Because energy doesn't respond to need. It responds to alignment. When you're chasing, you're saying, I don't have it. When you're aligned, you're saying, it's already mine. And that shift changes everything. You stop begging for what you've already been built for. You stop trying to prove your worth to people who can't even see their own. You stop moving from panic and start moving from purpose. That's when things start finding you. But the problem is, people love the chase more than the arrival. The chase gives them identity. It keeps them distracted. It gives them something to post about, something to talk about. They don't realize they've fallen in love with the struggle because the silence after success feels too empty. That's why some people keep chasing, even after they've already caught what they wanted. They don't know how to stop running. Stillness scares them. Fulfillment feels foreign. So they keep moving, chasing ghosts of goals they've already achieved. Because they can't handle peace. You can tell when someone's chasing instead of aligning. They talk about what they want more than they prepare for it. They're addicted to. Almost. Always almost happy, almost successful, almost at peace. Because chasing gives them something to complain about, and complaining gives them company. It's easier to keep running with the crowd than to stop and realize you've been running in circles. People don't want to slow down because slowing down means facing themselves. What's meant for you doesn't need to be forced. It doesn't need manipulation, performance, or pretending. It doesn't require you to break yourself to keep it. When something's truly yours, it feels heavy in the beginning. Not because it's wrong, but because it carries purpose. The wrong things feel light at first. They thrill you, flatter you, make you feel alive. But they burn out fast. The right things stay, even when they're quiet, even when they challenge you. They don't rush you, they refine you. The universe, fate, God, whatever you call it, has a strange sense of humor. It waits for you to exhaust yourself, trying to chase what you think you need. And only when you collapse from the effort does it hand you what you were supposed to have all along. Because only then are you humble enough to hold it. When you're chasing, your hands are too full of control to receive anything new. That's why letting go isn't losing. It's making space. You can't grab what's meant for you while you're clutching what's not. But people don't like letting go. They'd rather drag dead weight through every chapter, hoping it'll eventually turn into destiny. They chase people who've already left, opportunities that were never theirs, approval that was never coming. And every time they do, they lose a little more of themselves. Because chasing always costs more than waiting. It takes your peace, your energy, your sanity. And in the end, what do you get? A handful of things that were never supposed to stay. When something's meant for you, you won't have to beg for it to stay. You won't have to shrink to keep it. You won't have to explain your worth for it to see you. It'll recognize you. It'll find you where you are. That's why desperation is dangerous. It makes you chase what doesn't belong to you. And when you finally catch it, it'll still leave, because it was never meant to stay. What's meant for you comes with peace, not pressure. You have to understand, alignment isn't passive. It's not about sitting around doing nothing. It's about becoming the version of yourself that can handle what's meant for you. The chase is external. Alignment is internal. The moment you start working on yourself, instead of forcing outcomes, the right things start moving toward you. Because you're no longer begging. You're becoming. And that's what attracts everything. You can't chase destiny. It walks toward those who are ready, not those who are restless. You don't need to run after what's already written for you. You just need to stay in position. Keep your hands clean, your heart ready, your mind sharp. Because the right opportunity, the right person, the right moment, it won't pass you by. It'll arrive quietly, in the middle of your peace, not your panic. And when it does, you'll realize all that chasing was never necessary. You were never behind. You were just being aligned. Movement without direction leads to destruction. People love to move. They love the feeling of being busy, the illusion of progress.